How's it going, guys? David here from Tista Minis. Today, LSS had a big announcement with Flesh and Blood 2.0, basically updating the game in some ways and kind of giving an update on where they're going to be going with the game in the future. The main thing to take away from this was the History Pack 1, which you can see here. It's going to be a reprint of some of the previous sets, WTR, ARC, CRU, and basically there's going to be a few points about that, about why they did that and what they're trying to do. So let's jump into it. We'll talk about the history pack first and then some of the 2.0 updates. So, history pack 1, what is it? Well, basically, it's a reprint of some of the older cards. They're really going to be tailoring these towards accessibility for the player base. Seems LSS really wants more players to be able to get into the game, less barriers to entry. They don't want players having to pay $200 for a high-end card. So what this is basically pumping some more supply into the market so players can get some of those higher end cards at a cheaper price. They're going to be really focusing around accessibility with these. The difference with these ones, you're going to have the white border around them so you can see. They're actually going to be doing a small print run of these in black border for the other languages, which is actually what the next point is. Reprints are going to be coming out in different languages across the globe, so a lot of players who might not have had access to them before are going to be getting access to them, and there's actually going to be a small print run in black border for those players, but once those are gone, these cards are going to be in white print run only. None of these cards are also going to be foils. They're just going to be playing cards, really just so you can play. So for us in here in North America, not really that big of a deal, to be honest. A lot of these cards were pretty good in value, with a few exceptions, of course. So I think it's more of a big news for people around the globe who might not have had access to these cards, in different countries and such. So it's going to be really good in the sense of getting more players into the game. So here we have the main announcement of Flesh and Blood 2.0. It's a big article. You can find it on their website. And it goes through a bunch of different things. I'm just going to touch on some of the key points near the top of the document and go through them step by step. So first thing here, just Flesh and Blood, saying thank you to the community. Game's been around for 2.5 years, and based on what they're saying, it's going strong. They're seeing growth. That's what you want to see in your card game. A lot of TCGs, they don't get to this point or die early, or around this point they flake away. But it's nice to see that this one is looking pretty good and might be sticking around for the long term, which would be a nice treat to some of the other games that we have for the last couple of years. So the Fab 2.0 article is broken up into a few parts. We'll cover the first part here, which is basically retiring first edition. This is probably one of the biggest chunks and announcements from this thing. Originally, there was a small print run of first editions and the values were going up. It kind of had a two stream approach where collectors were getting into the game and there was the casual players who were playing the game for the sake of the game. And now with the more recent releases, it seems that the print runs are kind of 50-50, and it just isn't really what LSS is trying to do. They really want to be focusing on the game. So first edition isn't really helping that in a sense, because players can't actually get the cards they need when a set comes out in first edition first and there's a small print run and those staples go through the roof. It doesn't really help the game itself. Now the players are waiting for the unlimited boxes a few months later, but technically if someone got the first edition box and paid out, they can get those staples earlier. So it's kind of making it unbalanced. Doesn't really tie in with what they want to be doing. So they're just going to be getting rid of it altogether. So that's a pretty interesting decision. As far from a game point, it makes sense. From a collector point, it doesn't really hurt the collectors from before. It's just a change in direction. So they follow that up with, why not release first edition and unlimited on the same day? Kind of like that would kind of resolve that issue if all the cards were available at the same time. But they just didn't really want to do that. That's not really, once again, their focus, what they're saying. So they want everyone to have an equal chance at getting the cards and the foil cards. They don't want, anyone being left out. So they're just going to get rid of it. So basically, starting with Uprising on June 24th, it's just going to be unlimited moving forward. They're also going to be introducing in the token slot, basically, A little tweak to the draft. You can actually now draft a cold foil in the token slot, and this is going to be yours to keep, not part of your deck. Here we have a little update. This little purple triangle, it's actually going to be a new rarity of card called Marvels, and it's basically just alt cards for some of the high tier cards, so that's pretty cool. Just reiterating their cold foil policy here. Basically, any cold foils that were printed in the past, you can only get them in those sets. They won't be reprinted. They're sticking to that. The only exception being organized play cold foil prize cards, which is, for an event, not a big deal. Kind of like a prize. So here, scrolling down some more, you can see the white border cards of the reprints. Pretty nice. Reminds me of the Magic cards when they did it before, but I kind of actually like it. It kind of has a very nice, clean look. And these should allow you to get these cards into your decks a lot more easier than before. Here are the languages they're reprinting it in: French, German, Italian, Spanish. They're going to be coming out as black label initially, which is the black border still, from what I believe. And it's just going to be a small print run for those. Let's see here. Once the black label short print run is gone, any further prints for these languages will be the same as English, with white border with no foils. So basically, the other languages are getting a small print run in black, just to make it just to give them a chance to get those cards in foils. But once those are gone, those are gone. So yeah, that's pretty cool. History pack we spoke about more a little bit. Part 2, basically kind of saying the next steps for developing the game. One is they really want to focus on the development of the lore and storyline of the game. Kind of give the cards a little more substance, a little more background, so that you're not just playing with the cards. You're like, hey, this is cool, I got this guy. Different things like that. A lot of games have lore, but these things take time to develop. Doesn't come overnight, but it's nice to see that they're mentioning it as a focal point. Over here we have classic battle versus classic battles Reiner versus Dorinthia. So basically, their starter deck to introduce players into the game. They were saying previously, based on feedback, that the Blitz decks were just a little too complex for new players. So this should be a one product you buy to recruit players into the game. Very nice move. We'll see how that goes. Kind of get players into the game. Another cool thing here, PvE. I'm pretty excited for this one. It's all about having fun, so not competitive. And I'm interested to see how this plays out. We're going to see how it goes. But yeah, that's a pretty interesting announcement to me. I personally haven't had too much experience with PvE in card games, so I'm kind of curious to see how that is. The only exception being some of the Hearthstone I played back in the day. I remember them having the PvE element, which was pretty cool. A little change here to Blitz. The issue they were saying before was it was recommended to use young heroes, but the decks were kind of suited more to classic constructed, so they're changing it. So your young heroes only 2 unique cards, and yeah, so that should change the Blitz format a little bit. So you can keep going down. There's a bunch of different things. I'm not going to talk about these too much. Ban list. Currently, no cards are currently suspended, but this is basically how it will be. So kind of just laying the groundwork for that if needed. And they're saying it might just simplify things in some cases if they were to ban a card. But as of now, no ban cards. Some other cool stuff here. You can go down the list. But yeah, pretty cool. So just to recap, basically, LSS basically just kind of having a little mini patch in between their sets and deciding what the future of the game is going to be. Seems they kind of want to take away from the first edition unlimited collectability stance. It just wasn't really working out. Initially it kind of was, but now it's not. I'm not sure. When I first got introduced to the game, it kind of seemed like it was working, and it seemed like it was geared towards collectors and players, which I thought was okay, because you just come out with a small first edition print run. The collectors hop in, the collectors are excited. I feel that kind of maybe it sends a mixed message, and that's the problem ultimately. But the collectors, at least, they get the cards. They're not really interested in the game itself, and for the most part, I'd say, and they're just getting them to basically hold on and hope that the price goes up just because there's a small amount. But I think what the conflict was that players weren't having access to some of these cards unless they were getting the first edition. and that led to like the prices being too high for like staples in the decks. Um, and they were not releasing the first edition unlimited at the same time, so I think that was kind of the problem. And they mentioned that in the article how they also don't want to go towards having unlimited and first edition releasing at the same time, because that's just not what they really want to do. Ultimately, the main takeaway is they don't really want to be doing that anymore. They just want to focus on the gaming side of it, which is, I think, was always their main intention. And this first edition stuff is just kind of getting in the way and confusing, and they just said, you know what, we don't need that anymore. Let's just get cards into players' hands. Let's just get people playing. Let's see what we can do with this. So that's kind of what this Flesh and Blood 2.0 update is all about, I think. It's really just like cementing down the player base and getting new people into the game and just focusing on growth and recruitment. And then moving forward with Uprising, we'll see what changes the future has to bring. Alright guys, so if you like this video, hit the like button. Just messing around with YouTube and having a good time. So if you enjoyed it, show your support, and I appreciate you stopping by. Take care, guys.